Welcome to the first in a new series of Friday Alternatives. For anybody from outside the university, can I just explain that we run two open lecture series, the professorial lectures, and these, the Friday Alternatives. And this is the first one in the series of this year's Friday Alternatives. We try to cover a broad range of subjects, so you'll find there's something for everybody on there, and they're all free and open to members of the public. If you'd like to go on our mailing list, if I haven't already seen you, just call at reception desk on the way out. Today we're going to hear all about surfing the net, or more properly, surfing the internet on the World Wide Web. But first I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Bill Walmsley. After Bill served his apprenticeship with ICI, he graduated from Swansea University and joined the Wayne Kerr Company as a research and development engineer. He was awarded a doctorate for his work on sinusoidal computer-based digital processing, and in 1980 he was appointed head of computing at the university and responsible for the development of academic computing here throughout the 1980s. In 1989, he took leave of absence to set up Vector Limited, which is a joint venture company in collaboration with IBM. It develops and markets a range of interactive multimedia language training courses jointly with the BBC World Service. Vector won the Granada TV Flying Start Award in 1991 and several industry awards for innovation in multimedia design, and it exports its products to over 40 countries. Back at the university, Bill's head of an advisory group on information technology, and his current work has involved a national survey on the impact of information technology in the UK art and design education. His reports have been submitted to the House of Commons Select Committee on Funding and the Arts, on the Arts, and the UK Higher Education Funding Council. He's a chartered engineer and a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. So, come on, Bill, let's surf the net.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Well, wondering how to open this lecture, I actually stole the opening from a colleague who opened a lecture a few weeks ago. There was a general discussion on new technology in education. And it seemed to me the most appropriate opening for a lecture like this. And she said, I thought I was computer literate. I thought I was IT literate. I can use a computer, I can use a word processor, I can use a spreadsheet. But there's something happening in IT. And I don't know what it is. Something is happening. People are talking about new technologies. And people talked about new technologies when we got personal computers. So what is different? What are these new technologies? We could just look at the visualizer. I think this is indicative. These are a couple of television listings. The media interest in the new technologies, as they're now called, has been absolutely intense. Particularly in this country over the last year, there's been massive coverage every day in the newspapers, every day on the television, every day on the radio. So what is this thing that's happening? Because people seem to be paying a lot of attention to it. Well, there are really three things that are coming together at the moment, I think. We're talking about a massive investment which is taking place worldwide in communication technology. And in this country, we've all seen the streets being dug up time and time again as cable companies cable up the country. And also, this is happening all over the world, all in the major industrialized economies. This sort of frenetic activity is taking place. We've also seen the political will come into place. We've heard from President Clinton, we've heard from the European community, the G7 ministers. We've heard this week from Tony Blair, we heard last week from the Conservatives. Doubtless we'll hear something tomorrow from the Liberal Party. So the massive political consensus coming behind this industrial investment. And then probably most importantly, political policies are starting to emerge as well. And we heard a specific policy commitment, again from BT and the Labour Party this week, on how they would service some of the public sector. This is happening all over the world, the convergence of the investment, the political will, and the political policies. Well, that's the serious bit. That just sets the context. So what is it that's happening, and why is it so important? This is taken from a British Telecom booklet. You may have seen the television adverts at the moment running. Work smarter as well as work harder. And when you phone the free phone number and ask for the information, This is one of the brochures that you get. And it's all about communication. It's all about communicating with personal computers. Now, everybody has got personal computers. Lots of people have got personal computers. So why are they now able to communicate? Why suddenly is there this big push to communication? And what is the actual ultimate vision? What's the goal of all this? Well, there's a lot of technical talk involved. But basically, and again, this is another BT picture, this actually just does set the context of what everyone is aiming for. Here's a guy on looks like the Yorkshire Dales, with his notebook computer and his cellular telephone. And doubtless he's surfing the internet or sending an email to the office or something like that. So what everyone is aiming for is to make individuals independent of time and place. So whether this chap is sending a message to someone in another time zone who's asleep at the moment, whether he's just received a message from another time zone, whether he's talking within his own country to other people with personal computers, this independence of time and place is the key factor that everybody is trying to achieve. And I think that is the single most important message of the new technologies. They're going to free people up from being at a particular time, at a particular place, in order to communicate. So let's just look now how some of this is put into place and the underlying technologies that make this possible. It's not going to be a technical discussion. In fact, I'm taking quite a few technical liberties in simplifying this. So we could just look at the computer screen. What I've got here is a diagrammatic representation of the world. And whenever you talk about the internet, you've got to think global. Everything is global. We've got the four major land masses, the UK, the USA, the rest of Europe and the rest of the world. And within each of these land masses, each landmass has its own major telecommunication players. British Telecom, Mercury, obviously in this country, 9X, US Sprint, Deutsche Telekom in Germany, although now all these companies are becoming multinational, so they're operating in all the different countries, but there are dozens and dozens of major telecommunication players. And the blue lines represent the major telecommunication routes that move voice and computer data up and down the country. And for commercial purposes, these organizations have interconnected their networks, perhaps by satellite, perhaps by undersea fiber optic cable, depending on the commercial case at the time. So we've actually got in place, through commercial pressures, a network of very high performance telecommunication links. Now, where does the internet come into all of this? These are really the backbone which services the private and public computer networks around the world. If we take an example of a computer network hanging off this backbone, this one in black here is called JANET, which is the Joint Academic Network, and services the universities. And what has happened there is a company called UKerner has taken a contract from the education funding councils. They subcontract British Telecom and Mercury to wire up the universities. So they provide a slice of this service to a market which is called the universities, and they call their network JANET, the Joint Academic Network. So that is one of estimated 30,000 networks on the so-called internet. And the internet is simply a generic term for the collection of worldwide networks. Anybody building a network does so in a way that it can talk to other people, otherwise it's self-defeating. So the university community in the UK, they have lots of information that they want to disseminate to others. Any network hanging on the internet is owned by a group of people who want to disseminate information. So this is where the information on the internet comes from. It doesn't come from any grand plan. It just comes from the owners of the various networks disseminating the work that they're interested in. Another example closer to home, Cable Northwest. Initially seen as a television network in the Northwest, then it's seen as a business telephony network in the Northwest. It's now being seen as a domestic telephony network, and the next phase of marketing will be as an interactive computer network. But again, it's the same basic technology, more or less, just marketed to a different group of customers, in this case, domestic and business users. There's another network which is very important, particularly for people who like to work with this technology from home. There's a group of companies, probably about 15 or 20 in the UK, called Internet Service Providers. And rather than providing network connections to the universities or to the television subscriber, they simply present what they call points of presence in all the towns and the cities in the UK. So Demon Internet Services, which is the one shown on this slide, is one such provider. And it has a number which is Preston 484848. And that number is a number which you can dial with your computer to gain access to the Demon network and then to the rest of the networks on the internet. So what I'm going to do from now on in is what you could do from home if you're not already doing it as a individual subscriber. I've deliberately chosen not to use the university's networks in order to do it exactly as you could do it from home. So here we are, house in Garstang, a British Telecom local call to Preston to 4848 gives you a connection into the Demon network. And the cost of that, I pay £10 a month to Demon, and that's a one-off flat rate charge. Then you pay the cost of the local call. So that's the introductory price. That's eminently affordable, I think. And it's because of that sort of costs that there's been such tremendous interest in it, because it's a very affordable technology. Okay. How do computers talk one to another? Well, if we have one computer on the internet, it has a 12-digit address. And every computer has a separate address. The computer sends out a message with the address of its destination, with its home address, and the message tucked in between. And when the receiving computer detects it, it sucks it in and reads the message, and then it responds back to the originating computer. So there's this toing and froing of messages. And it may take several toings and froings to get a complete message across. But this is how it operates in very simple terms. So what can we do on the internet? Using that basic telecommunication system, there are several applications that run on it. And they run in your own PC. You're entirely in control of them. And we'll just go through some demonstrations of each in order to give an idea here. We'll look at all of these in the course of the next half an hour. The most commonly used is electronic mail, and has been around for decades in one form or another. The World Wide Web, which is in the title of this talk, which is a very visual form of communication. Usenet News, which is it's like a set of bulletin boards or news groups for individual subjects. We'll have a look at those. Something called remote login, which is other name is called Telnet. This is the hacker's paradise. and File Transfer Protocol, which is a big word, but generally abbreviated to FTP. That's just a means of exchanging files from one computer to another. You may not want to read them, you just may want to transfer them. Well, we'll do all of this in the next half an hour or so. And just before we have a look at electronic mail, I just want to perhaps clear up a little bit of confusion. There's a lot of talk about other networks other than the internet. Networks, for example, the Microsoft network, or CompuServe, or America Online, or Kix, or you're a Mac user, eWorld. All these networks are private networks operated by commercial organizations, and they've got quite a different character to what we see on the internet. And what we'll do, we'll have a look at the internet, we'll look at those features of the internet which I've described, and we'll also have a look at one of these networks. We'll have a look at CompuServe, and we'll just contrast the development of the open internet with the private network, which is known as CompuServe, which also has a Preston number through which you can access it. Right, I just need to get this up and running. Right, if we could go to the computer screen. What I've got here is a piece of software which comes with your subscription to the internet service provider. And you can just instruct it to log in. And you can hear my modem just dialing that number, 484848. Okay, and what we have here is what's known as the home page of the service provider. So this is the front page, if you like, of the daemon service. I'll just switch off a few of these options. There we go. It says, welcome to Daemon Internet. And this is a sign you see quite a lot on the internet, which means we're working on this home page. Of course, the service provider is in itself a major information provider on the internet. But the way to access other sites is by their site address. Let me just show you the form of this before we move on. You just go to the visualizer. Thanks. You hear a lot of the word Uniform Resource Locator. A horrible word, URL. I prefer just to call it the web address. And it's a form of address which every computer which serves information on the internet has. And it has a uniform form. And here's an example. It always starts with HTTP. That means it's a hypertext document. I'll explain that in a moment. It then follows by the name of the computer, which is depends on what the site itself has called its computers. www is an obvious one. Then is the name of the site itself. In this case, UCLAN, the University of Central Lancashire. Then following that, there is a domain name. Now, we're an academic institution, so in the UK, all academic institutions have got .ac as their domain name. And then following that, if one's familiar with, well, following that is the country, .uk. And then if you're familiar with using a personal computer, what follows then is just the path to the file name, just where it is located on your computer. Now, these domain names and country codes crop up all over the place. If I just give you an example of other domain names. In the US, it's .edu for academic. Companies are known as .cos. Organisations like political parties, charities, BBC in some ways, are .orgs or organisations. .govs are government sites. .coms commercial sites. .mil, well, you don't see it very often, military sites. Then there's .net, which is a network resource. The country codes follow the usual abbreviations for countries. For example, UK, CH for Switzerland, FR for France, DE for Germany, AU for Australia, etc., etc., etc. So by looking at the so-called uniform resource locator, you can see what country the machine is in, and you can also see which site owns it. Okay, so if we go back to the computer screen, this is the home page of this university. I can't take you any further because we're in the process of developing it. And the site itself hasn't been released by our communications department yet. But except to say that it will have information about our courses, about Preston, about the library, the computing service, everything that we as an organisation operate. This will be our home page. Let's look at some further afield. This one comes from NASA. It's curious in the States because they have the Freedom of Information Act, which requires most publicly funded bodies to disseminate information freely rather than on request. The US is a very resource-rich area when it comes to the internet and the web. So we just page on down here from the home page. In fact, here's a map. This is a map of all the NASA sites, all the different NASA facilities. And this map is known as a sensitive map, which means I can click on one of these sites. I'm moving the pointer to the Kennedy Space Center. And it's changed into an hourglass, which means wait a while. And that is accessing the machine at the Kennedy Space Center in order to bring down the Kennedy Space Center's home page. Now, I need to own up here because when I was talking on this visualizer, I had a little error message come up on the screen, which is not unusual when you're on the web, because it is a live system and you are actually at almost everybody else's mercy. So what I'm going to do is to remake that connection. We'll just do that again. Okay. And anybody who's got one of these systems at home will be familiar with having to do this once in a while. So it's redialing the Preston number. Okay, let's go to that NASA page again. That's Kennedy Center. Here we go. So this is now coming from Florida, the Space Center at Florida. This is where they actually do the launches, of course, and there's a message here saying that the countdown for a new satellite is actually online. Click here. So we click there, and here we are. Countdown. Let's get rid of a few of these buttons for you so you can see better. Okay. Shuttle launch countdown. There's a whole list of things which, some of them are very, very technical. I mean, some of this stuff that's on the NASA site is not just like on a newspaper. It's like very, very technical. It's very, you need to be an astrophysicist to understand most of it. Let's just have a look at this. This one says the countdown. I think this is the countdown clock. The status of the countdown. There we are, T minus 6 hours and holding for some reason. And then if we move further down, it says you may wish to select one of the following times to learn more about the events that have happened during the countdown. And each of those blue lines is a situation where they've had to hold the countdown for some reason. And then there's a page here which tells me about the weather reports, the launch team, gives me some information about the control center that does the launch, etc. Okay. Let's go a little bit further. Let's come back home. I've selected these various pages because they've all got some various features on them, which helps me describe this piece of software I'm using, which is called a net browser. And again, this net browser is free from your internet service provider. When you sign up, you pay your £12 to sign up. So this is the BBC. Let's look at their television pages. Very corporate looking BBC. Okay. I've got another little problem. Okay. And there's a weather centre at the bottom. BBC Weather Centre. These are big, sensitive buttons, these 3 big blocks. You can click on them. Weather on the net, children's weather. Just click on that. It's easier to understand. BBC Children's Television, weather. Weather. Build your own weather station. And how to make a rain gauge. It's great Blue Peter stuff, isn't it? Yeah. Take a plastic lemonade bottle and a pair of scissors. A little bit of education now about the water cycle, how the rain happens, weather symbols, a question. What kind of cloud is more likely to produce thunder? Let's click there for the answer. And the answer is down here. Cumulonimbus cloud. Okay. Let's go back 1 or 2. The reason I went to the children's weather is that, again, on the weather one, it is very, very technical meteorological information. It's, again, a meteorologist would understand it, but the depth of technical information, for example, even on the BBC weather site, is enormous. So we've got, let's say, the jolly side of it, like the children's weather and children's games and things, but we've also got really serious information on there as well. This is a site in Arizona. You'll have heard of the World Women's Conference in Beijing a couple of weeks ago. Well, in conjunction with that, the United Nations sponsored an online art exhibition and invited the world's women to contribute to this. And this is their home page. Go one further. It's the introduction, the artist index, which I'll click on. Here are the artists. And a couple of the women artists in the department here, in the art department, submitted some work for this. I can just find them. So these are all the various women and the countries, and there's a little thumbnail sketch of their actual piece of artwork. So this is Lubena Himage. She's a member of staff in the department here, and this is the image. It's called 5, and it's acrylic on canvas. The original size was 5 foot by 4 foot. Now, all these images were available on a video wall in Beijing, and also at the United Nations. So look at another one here. Leslie Sanderson, again an artist here. There's a lot of work with pencil. So this is an 8-inch by 100-inch piece in pencil called The Way We Are. If I click on it, there you go, I get a larger rendition of it. Nothing like the original size, of course, but there we go. Okay. Let's come back home again now. We've heard a lot from the government, and they are also taking it very seriously. And all the government departments are now publishing their paperwork on the web. So this is the government home page, and we can get an alphabetic index, and we click on F, and there's the Foreign Office. And this is the Foreign Office's homepage, and I think the graphic indicates their view of their location in the world. We still own it. Interesting interpretation. There's a statement here on Hong Kong. This is the official British line on the situation in Hong Kong. It gives a little bit of the history of the place, how we came to acquire it. The Sino-British Declaration, China's basic law, keynote speeches. I should go back one, go back again. And again. Everybody is on here. Inland revenue. You want your tax tables. It's all here. Tax information from the revenue. Tax bulletins. All of this just text. And of course the European Commission are big users of the technology as well. Wait till this loads. It's just coming across a bit slowly. There we go. So we've lost the image on that, but this is the European Communities homepage. We've seen a lot this week from the Labour Party, and they publish their CV on the web. They also have a who's who, Houses of Parliament, MPs by constituency. Just to show that this technology is not perfect. When you look at Preston, it's Mr. Audrey Wise. Spelling mistakes. Okay. Conservative Party Leadership Challenge, that was covered, as was Wimbledon and all the other key events of the summer. All this information is just going on there. You know, it's not being commissioned. It's being put on by, in this case, an internet provider in order to engender interest in their services. And in addition to central government, a lot of local government is using this as well. And this is probably one of the most interesting sites for local government. It's Tynedale District Council in Northumberland, who happen to have Hadrian's Wall on their patch. It's like Hounslow having Heathrow Airport on their patch. So Hadrian's Wall, here we go. Little tourist bulletin effectively about Hadrian's Wall. Information about the wall. And each one of these pale green statements will link us to further information, what events are taking place, etc., etc. There's probably about a couple of dozen local authorities at the moment on the web. Although these things change literally every day. The hospital issue that was picked up this week in the blaze of publicity with the Labour Party. This is a hospital, well, it's a teaching hospital in the States, in Ohio. And you can't see this here, but it says the virtual hospital. And it's a teaching hospital which has created this website for its students and for its patients. If I click on this area here that says for patients, having to wait is absolutely terribly embarrassing in a situation like this. Let's just not wait any longer. Try again. Okay, let's kill that one. This is again in the health sector, this is a National Health Trust putting its statutory information on the web. This is Brighton. I think they were the first to do it about 9 months ago. And if we just page down to the bottom, quarterly reports on waiting times. Here we are. So can't see it very well here, but it gives the name of the consultant and the routine waiting time in weeks. How many patients have been treated within 3 months, within 12 months? And this is the ENT, ear, nose and throat consultant. So as and when all these hospitals come online, we ought to just browse around to see where we can get our tonsils fixed fastest. But this is statutory information that has to be published. So of course it's a very cost-effective way of disseminating it. Well, since we're in a university, let's look at a distance learning course. This is called Global Instructional Chemistry, and it's probably one of the best developed web courses that there is. This comes from Imperial College, from the Department of Chemistry. And here is the contents of the course. And let's say take this chapter 4. This is all about molecular interactions, whatever that is. and gets all very technical and very complex. But again, it's a really serious use of this technology. There's one down here, quantum mechanics. Again, serious, detailed stuff. The reason this is called global instructional chemistry is that each chapter comes from a different part of the world. The molecular animations come from Imperial College. The quantum mechanics comes from the University of California at San Diego. And one or two others come from Leeds, and some come from Cambridge, and some come from France. So what we've got is a book which is only integrated on the computer of the user. You know, the bits of the book reside in different computers in different parts of the world, but when you view it on a screen, it pulls it all together, and it seems like a seamless book on your screen. Now there's one other I want to just dash to now. Computer games. There's tons of computer games on the net, and this is an area that people contribute games to, called the games domain. And if we just click on this, what's new at the 30th of September, we get an update of what is available to download from this remote computer into our computer here. I'm just clicking my way through this. Tetris, that's a game I personally like. Here's Tetris, the brick game, you know, the falling bricks. You click on this, it gives you a description of the game. Then if you click on this, it's now accessing the remote site in order to transfer the game across to this computer. Now, you know, this could take some while because it's a big game, so I'm not going to actually complete that. But that's an example of file transfer, where you don't want the game coming up on screen, but you do want to transfer it from the remote computer to your computer. And if you look at what it actually says here, it says src.doc, then it says .ic, which means Imperial College, .ac, it's academic, .uk, it's in the UK. And there's another site here which says luth.se, which is Sweden. It'll be a University of Technology in Sweden. So these internet addresses pop up both on the web, on email, and on file transfer. What I want to do now is just to come out of that and look at electronic mail. No, I've changed my mind. Let's go back in. Let's just go off that. Okay, so electronic mail. This is quite an old warhorse in terms of telecommunications. This is an electronic mail, my electronic mail box. And basically what we have here is a folder which contains new mail. And on the left hand side it says who's it from. In the middle it says what is the subject. On the right hand side it gives it the time and the date. So all these are dated the 6th of October, because I checked this just a couple of hours ago and I emptied it. So if I just double click on this top message, there is the message, and I can delete it or I can just file it away. This is not really of interest to me, so I'll just delete it by clicking the delete button. It's gone. this is the next one that's come up. So I'll say, yes, I'll keep that. So I'll click the Move button, and I'll move it into a folder. Let me see, these are all my folders. So let's say put it in this top folder. And it disappears from the screen, it goes into that folder. I can look at it later on. This next message that's come up is just a confirmation that a message I sent earlier has been delivered to somebody. It's quite useful, you get a confirmation back. And you can also get a confirmation that the person has read it, which is even more useful sometimes. The speed at which this operates, it can be quite remarkable. I was on the phone to a contractor in London a couple of weeks ago, and I said, well, I'm sure I sent you a copy by electronic mail. And he said, well, you didn't. I said, okay, well, I'll just send it now. And I just sent it from the screen. And we'd uttered a couple of sentences. And he said, oh, yes, I got it now. Yes, I can see what you mean. So, within about 15 seconds, he'd received that piece of electronic mail. We have a lot of students here say, well, how, my father is working in the Gulf states. How can I keep in touch with him on email when it's all possible? And I mean, this is a very easy way of keeping in touch, particularly for anyone with children in higher education, because all the universities have got this technology. Now, when you actually write or send a piece of email, because it can look rather boring, there's a few conventions that have developed. So, that's just a colon, a hyphen, and a bracket. But what it means is that. Where's it gone? That. I'm happy today. Or I'm sad today. Or just a bit worried about that one. So the whole set of little devices that people use to make electronic mail more interesting. And it's just part of life with electronic mail. It's a very informal medium, very informal, but very effective nevertheless. Now, what we saw with the web there was a web browser, which I actually use on a PC computer. But in fact, there are over 20 web browsers which can be used on almost any mainstream computer. Whether it's a Mac or an Archimedes or an Atari or an Amiga, whether it's running with Windows, Unix or Warp or whatever. And they all look more or less the same. This is a couple of pictures. Here's the Macintosh browser. You see, it's very similar to the one we were using. There's the Amiga browser. Very, very similar. Here's the Acorn one with the X files showing. Again, Archimedes spelled wrong there. Never mind. There's one other area which I think is very important to look at, and that's called newsgroups. Now, this is where a lot of the risque stuff is. You hear about this stuff in the newspapers. And a lot of it is in these newsgroups, so just be careful what we look at. But a newsgroup is basically a subject-centered group where the people who contribute to the group have a common interest, whatever the subject. Okay. I'm using the web browser just to bring this up. They're coming in now. It just takes a while to load them because there's quite a lot of them. Just click on this. Here we are, Newsgroups. Just wait till it comes up. Here we go. Now, there are literally thousands of news groups. There's 5,000 plus easily. And one I've been using recently is called SOC Dot. Now, SOC Dot is everything to do with social issues. And as part of the SOC Dot news group, there's a subset called SOC Dot Culture. And it's followed by a country. So here we've got SOC Dot Culture Cuba. So if I just click on that, what we have in that news group is a set of articles to do with the culture of Cuba. It's just retrieving them now from the host machine, and it'll display them in a moment. And the reason I was interested in these SOC Dot Culture news groups, and I joined a lot of them, Australia, Belgium, Brazilian culture, Baltic culture, Australian culture, was that the local parish church is fundraising in Preston, and it's trying to put together a book about all the Prestons in the world. And I was asked if I could perhaps use the internet somehow to do a bit of research for the book. So in fact what I did was to join all these culture clubs in the various countries and put a message in each of the areas saying, is there a Preston in Cuba? Is there a Preston in Canada? Is there a Preston in Belgium or wherever? And I only did that last night, but I've had about half a dozen responses. And I got one from Canada, one from Australia, one from Scotland. I know there's a Preston in Cuba, but I've not had a response yet. Here we go. So this is a news group. It's got the heading news group, soc.culture.cuba. And these are all the articles that have been posted to that news group recently. Now, when I say recently, it might be the last few hours, it might be the last few days, just depending on how busy that group is. Now, here's mine. Is there a Preston in Cuba? So I click on that, it'll bring it up. So if someone in Cuba reading this saying, what is it? What is a Preston? We got one. So here we are. Is there a Preston in Cuba? And there's a message here which says, why I'm asking the question, and then my address at the bottom. Of course, it's got my electronic mail address at the top. So if anybody wants to send me a message, they can just click on this, and they get this form. And on this form, they could just type their reply and click send, and it would come back to my electronic mail address. What's happened here? Again, a little glitch. Right, we're back to it now. You do get these glitches from time to time, because it is it's a live system. Okay, back to the news groups. So all of these groups, and there's a group for every subject you can imagine, and some that you wouldn't want to imagine, but there's groups on everything. You can subscribe to, enter an electronic conversation, etc. Right, let's just stop there on the internet, and let's just have a quick look at a commercial network. I'll just go on to CompuServe. need to fill in my ID. Now again, this is a piece of software which comes free once you sign up to CompuServe. CompuServe at the moment is, I think it's £6.22 a month. But you do pay for connect time, which of course is where they make the money really, because it is a commercial network. And the CompuServe number is 830058 in Preston. And it's a Mercury number. So there we go. Depending on the information you access, depends how much you charge. Some information is free because it's just general, but some information is very valuable, like financial information on companies and things like that. So you pay what you read, basically. It's just making the connection. CompuServe is a bit slower, actually, than the web sometimes. Now they have their equivalent to the Newsgroups, but they call them forums. And there's probably, modem connection lost. C'est la vie. Try again. It's gone again. CompuServe has the advantage that the dialing access points all over the world, countries all over the world. So it's a truly international network. Daemon, for example, just operates in the UK mostly. You can access other sites, of course. Right, here we go. And because you're being charged, in this top left-hand corner, it says connected. You get a little clock, which tells you how much is going up on the clock. Oh. Can we go to the computer? There we go. In this top left-hand corner, it says connected. And once it's made the connection, the clock will start ticking. You keep an eye on the charges. We're just waiting for the remote computer to say hello. Embarrassing. Is it? Yes, yeah. You don't know the number offhand, do you? No, okay. I think we're going to have to kill that, actually. It's not playing game, is it? But what I can show you whilst we're waiting is that this immediately comes up with a screen of goodies. You know, there's news, magazines, sports, reference, financial pages, shopping pages, travel pages, education, health, home, leisure, fun, games, entertainment, etc. So you're straight into it. And the reason why it's a commercial network is that all the information that is on there has been properly catalogued and presented to you right up front. On the internet, you've got to start going searching. You don't know the quality information that you're receiving. On the internet, everything looks of equal quality till you read it or download it. But on the commercial networks, that there is a certain quality threshold on the information. And on networks such as CompuServe, you can access all the professional databases as well, the library databases, finance databases, news databases, etc. It's not having it. Okay. I think we'll just have to draw it to a close there, because I think the tape will be running out. And thank you for coming. It really is quite a good hobby, if you want to get into this. It's something which is affordable, providing you keep an eye on the phone charges. But it can be great fun. Thanks very much.